With dozens of sequels, spin-offs, sports games, and memorable cameos, I think it's safe to say that Super Mario is a great character. He starred in some of the best games of all time, rewrote the rules of racing games, and remains one of Nintendo's most popular characters. In an industry where heroes are often forgotten in a month or two, Mario has managed to withstand the test of time and be as relevant today as he was a quarter century ago. But even gaming's most recognizable mascot character starred in a few stinkers. A quick search of YouTube will bring up a bevy of videos listing terrible Mario games, almost always hammering the same few releases. This is a topic GamePro magazine decided to tackle a decade ago. In an article cleverly titled 10 Mario Sellout Moments, GamePro decided to look at what they called the lowest moments in Mario history. It's a list so ridiculously baffling that it's still worth talking about 10 years later. It doesn't take long for this list to fly wildly off course. Forget Hotel Mario or Mario's early years preschool fun. This list kicks off with Super Mario Sunshine on GameCube. Well, I was never a huge fan of this iteration. It's shocking to see it on the list of Mario's worst moments. It's even more surprising when you realize that GamePro magazine gave the game a 5 out of 5 when it was reviewed back in August of 2002. What could possibly be worse than Super Mario Sunshine? Super Smash Bros., of course. Complaining that Hal was following the post-1995 Saturday Night Live rule by resorting to fighting when all else fails, GamePro had no love for the super popular fighting series. Up next, Dance Dance Revolution Mario Mix on GameCube. While certainly not bad from a technical level, I'll confess that this is one of Mario's most embarrassing moments. The corny remixes of Mario music can't hold a candle to the traditional Dance Dance Revolution soundtrack, and the rest of the music just felt out of place. That said, it's still better than Hotel Mario. Number 7 brings Mike Tyson's Punch-Out!, a game I, like most sane people, have great nostalgia for. Their sole complaint? Mario doesn't fit as the referee. Maybe I've lived a sheltered life, but I've never once heard somebody say, "Gee, this Punch-Out! Game would have been so much better if Mario wasn't hogging all the attention." Another curious choice is Mario Paint, which they added to the list because, and I quote, "Mario wore a sideways cap on the box. Enough said." No, not enough said. I'm sorry, but in a world where Wrecking Crew, Hotel Mario, and Mario Teaches Typing exist, you can't use up the slot because you don't like the way the guy wore his hat. In GamePro's defense, and at this point it's clear they need one, they did include the Super Mario Bros. Movie at number 5. While I know people love it in a it's so bad it's good sort of way, but this really is one of Mario's lowest moments. It barely made $20 million in its theatrical run, and it was panned by critics and fans alike. If you think the rest of the list is going to make as much sense as the last pick, well then guess again. Their next selection was Mario Party 4, a game they called stale and uninspired, noting that it was just more of the same. Apparently more of the same was good enough in 2002, when GamePro gave the sequel a 4.5 out of 5. Calling the controls sharp as ever, the magazine argued that this was another winning entry in the popular franchise. This trend of giving games high scores one year and then immediately turning on them continues in the final 3 games on the list. Instead of naming a real game in the 3rd spot, GamePro named Baby Mario as one of the hero's lowest moments. I guess that's literally true, since he was a very small baby, but the magazine complained that it was a little too cutesy and obnoxious. 2 things they didn't seem to have a problem with when they gave Yoshi's Island a near-perfect score of 4.5 out of 5. Their penultimate choice is none other than Super Mario 64 DS, an admittedly crummy port of one of the best-reviewed games of all time. They didn't like the D-pad controls, a common complaint. But they gave the game positive scores at the time and recommended it as a launch game. Just a few months later, here it is, the second worst Mario game of all time. But here's the thing. There's no time to wrap your head around the addition of Super Mario 64 DS, because GamePro's lowest Mario moment will blow your mind. By now, you've probably already guessed that it's not Hotel Mario or any of the other games everybody's already accepted as being bad Mario releases. Instead, they went a completely different direction. They went with Mario Kart Double Dash. To quote GamePro, "Without a doubt, the biggest letdown in Mario Land was Mario Kart Double Dash." They complained that not much has changed since the original Mario Kart, and the sense of speed was mediocre. To make matters worse, the magazine moaned that little was done to compensate the lack of online multiplayer. Harsh. Of course, if you've made it this far, then you already know what I'm about to say. Only 30 issues earlier, GamePro called Double Dash fast and furious. Giving it a perfect 5 out of 5, they concluded that this Mario Kart sequel is a reminder why we should play GameCube games. They loved the myriad of multiplayer modes and never once complained about the lack of online multiplayer. The truth is, it's okay to think that Double Dash was a huge letdown. I mean, it's certainly not one of my favorite Mario Kart outings, but for a magazine so steeped in the history of video games, you'd think they might remember some of the Mario games everybody hated. When half of the games received perfect scores one month and then are bashed as Mario's lowest moments the next, it calls into question GamePro's already dubious reviews. And just in case you're wondering, GamePro's lowest rated Mario games included Hotel Mario on CDI with a 2.5 out of 5, as well as Mario is Missing on Super NES and Mario Clash on Virtual Boy, which both received 3.5 out of 5. Hey, thanks for watching our video. This is the start of what should be a busy week full of reviews and more. But before we jump into that, I want to spend a little more time talking about this GamePro list. After we posted our Nintendo Power Best and Worst series, I got a lot of requests for a GamePro version. Unfortunately, I won't be able to do that, since GamePro used to give like 30 perfect scores a year. But I am planning more videos like the one you just watched, where instead of looking at the best and worst, we use their own reviews to debunk their stupid articles. I hope you dig it. So, do me a favor and click the subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then,